The impact of AI on our space is pretty interesting because it's not all positive and it's not all negative. And we look at it on the positive side as being an accelerator of what is our core asset, which is the ability to identify content that's safe for advertisers and suitable for advertisers. And it's helping us accelerate our ability to do so by identifying images faster, by identifying challenging content more efficiently, and not using as many humans to do so. And I think that's a really positive thing. On the negative side, however, we've seen AI being used in the generative fashion to create more, let's say, less important content, MFA type content, content that can be somewhat misleading for advertisers to be around. So we've got these kind of dual aspects of AI's impact on the business that both impact our ability to do our job, but what we need to do our job against.
For your company, has it been a matter of enhancing existing tools, or do you have to start from scratch and build a whole bunch of new tools and technologies to tackle this?
Yeah, it's a great question. The great part of what AI is doing for us is that it doesn't involve a rebuild. It involves taking the same processes that we've done so well in the past, and the same rules and the same structures, and being able to do them faster. So whether it's identifying challenging content, looking for fraud signals, these are things that were always machine powered, but human driven. We can now take a lot less of the human drive out of it, human oversight, but take all the tedium out of it and allow the humans to be focused on strategy as opposed to identification. Allow humans to be focused on policy as opposed to culling out bad stuff. So I think it's really accelerating and making more seamless and efficient what we have always done.
This year's it's an election year. It's always been a challenge to kind of maintain the equilibrium we would like to see in terms of misinformation and things like that. How worried should we be about what we're facing over the next 12 months?
Well, if it's anything like the previous election cycles that we've seen, it's going to be a challenging one for advertisers, only due to the fact that we've launched a election task force back in 2020, and every 2 years we reboot it for the midterms. So in 2022, when we saw the midterm elections, we saw a marked increase in hate speech, particularly in those markets where there was a competitive Senate race. As much as a 20 to 30% increase in hate speech in those markets. We now have a very competitive presidential race we're coming into, which means that we're expecting to see more hate speech, more misinformation and disinformation, and more stuff that advertisers are going to need to build plans to avoid. Otherwise, they may get caught up in that mess.
Brand safety has been an issue for a number of years, but it's definitely had a resurgence in attention in the last 6 months, let's say. How are you guys addressing that, and should we be worried that marketers might get a little squeamish given what's going on?
It's interesting. It seems like every time there's a lull in what advertisers would say is stuff that they should worry about, some event occurs. And I hate to say it's just the world we live in, whether it's Ukraine or the Middle East or social movements, there's always something that can create controversial content that advertisers need to be worried about. We always like to think that we're providing them a scalpel to avoid content as opposed to a meat cleaver, which is what their options have been in the past, which is, I'm just not going to advertise in news. I'm just not going to be in this type of content. That's a bad thing. It's a bad thing for publishers. It's bad for our ecosystem. So I think we're looking at another cycle with the elections in which there's going to be more challenges, but it doesn't mean advertisers should be worried about being in news because it's going to attract a lot of eyeballs. It doesn't mean they should be worried about being in social because that's where there's going to be a lot of great dialogue. What it means is they should be looking at tools, strategies, methodologies to ensure that their brands are around stuff that's important, but not adversarial to who they are as a company or as a brand.
Lastly, at the other end of the spectrum, there's been a lot of interest in attention metrics as a way to maybe capture those moments of uptick and interest. That's one area that you've invested in. Can you kind of catch us up on where that's going?
Yeah, as attention is something that we've been focused on for the last few years. And everyone says it's the year of X, it's the year of Y. Well, I think this year really is going to be the year when attention breaks free. And I think part of the reason why is nothing to do with how great DV solutions are, but with the ecosystem and what's going on with cookie deprecation. Advertisers are going to have less opportunities to find the audiences that will actually move the needle for them. So they're going to start looking for more proxies. Those proxies are going to include context, but they're also going to include things like attention and how they can attach attention to an actual outcome. So I think, with the deprecation of cookies, with the changes in the ecosystem that are occurring, attention is going to take center stage as a real way for advertisers to connect what engagement and exposure a user has as to how that will move the needle for them on selling a product.